You have a quorum.
Oh, very good. Well, let's just go ahead and call the meeting to order. Is it so? Was the agenda posted?
Yes, it was.
Okay, very good. And I guess I know the announcement, but Jackie, do you want to just go ahead and announce the change to the agenda?
Yeah, we're adding, well, there's a new attachment that came, which was a letter that was sent to our legislators. And then item 9D3 is a letter to discuss a possible, opposing a possible mandatory mask mandate.
Okay, thank you, Jackie. Any comments from the public?
No comments from the public.
Okay, very good. Next item.
Next time is the Brown Act declaration. David, do you want to do that?
Sure. So to keep with our virtual meeting rules, we would need the board to approve the AB 361 declaration that was included in the packet.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Okay, Britt and Olivia. Reverse roll call. Yeah, thanks.
Any opposition? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you.
Jackie, before you go to the consent calendar, I just wanted to make a couple quick items. I know that we're doing all virtual again tonight, and I know some of the board members have asked to go back in person. And David, the threshold was what, 8 board members need to say that they want to come. So I told David that I would put out a bribe of barbecue dinner for next month. So those of you that like barbecue dinner, please let David know you'd like to attend in person. And I guess we could at very least do a hybrid meeting. Is that correct?
Yes, we can do a hybrid meeting.
Okay.
There's another thing that we might be able to do is if we had a semi-outdoor location, it might be more comfortable for people. I mean, I don't know if that would make a difference if we had a room or a patio that we could meet at instead of our board meeting. Our boardroom is an enclosed room.
Well, I don't know of any, but I mean, I'm sure everyone loves outdoor as well. If you could logistically figure that out, I'd say, why not?
The one I was thinking of, which of course is at the end of the world, is the Point Vicente Interpretive Center, because you can open the doors and you can really make that very airy. But I don't know if that, I don't know if you want to travel there or whatever, or if anybody has that.
Well, everyone's always welcome in the city of Rancho Palos Verdes, but like you said, it is a little bit end of the world.
Yes.
For the South Bay. So anyhow, we'll start with the bribe of barbecue dinner, and we'll see if we need to enhance that at all. The other thing was that
I'm sorry, but when do you want responses, John?
oh boy. So how soon would you need, David, how soon would you need responses from everyone?
The way the policy works is we decide on the Monday before the Thursday, by close of business the Monday before. So we would need responses by the 23rd of August.
You have 3 weeks to decide, Olivia.
Is the barbecue from Rascals?
Wherever you want it. That sounds great.
Yeah, I think we could
Add a little enticement.
yeah, we can look at anybody that's open to catering to us. So
It just has to be in the South Bay. That would be my only request.
It is. It's Torrance, our favorite city. Am I right there, George?
Absolutely, for the latter part, even though when you say barbecue, I just want to make sure I clarify, Rascals is teriyaki,
Oh, that's
probably not the
Wait.
kind of barbecue that I believe our chairman was suggesting.
Oh, close enough. I mean, I don't know. What did you have in mind, John?
I was thinking whatever I can convince a few more people to come to the in-person meeting, great, and the rest can not have barbecue. Whatever gets the most people, I guess. Anyhow, David and we'll discuss that, and we'll figure out a good place for all. The other thing was, I want to make sure that all the board members feel comfortable actively participating. I know there's many of you that are chattier than others, which is great. But I want to make sure that everyone feels comfortable robustly talking about issues, because these issues we talk about are hugely important, as you all know, and that's why you spend time being on these meetings. And then I've already taken some time to meet with a few of the board members for lunch or breakfast. But if any of you want to sit down and talk about any specific issues, changes, ideas, I'm open to do that. So just reach out to me and let me know, and I'd be happy to sit with any of you and talk about South Bay COG. So that's kind of my open invitation there. So with that, Jackie, what's the next item?
Next item is announces changes in the agenda, and I should have said this earlier too. We're having, there is no closed session tonight because more information is being gathered for the closed session, and we'll announce it when we're ready.
Okay, and so you'd be working with legal counsel to get prepared for that?
Mhm.
Okay, next item.
Comments from the public?
We received no comments.
Okay, thank you. And the next item is the consent calendar.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
B,
Second.
Okay,
hand up.
I think Rodney and
Yeah, I
Cedric.
just wanted to pull the legislative matrix just to be able to request to add some bills that Contract Cities has already taken positions on that I think we should add to look at for the legislative committee so we can take action when the legislature comes back on recess.
Okay, it's okay to pull the item, but then we can also discuss kind of the last minute nature of a lot of information all at once. So what item is that on the agenda, Jackie?
It's item
E.
E of the
Yeah,
consent.
Okay. Any other items to be pulled from consent? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second,
Okay, moved and seconded, Rodney and Olivia, without item E, which will be discussed after. Reverse roll call.
Any opposition? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you.
Jackie, do we go to the consent calendar
Yes,
item
Now we
immediately?
go to item E.
Okay. B, do you want to just go ahead and,
Yes, so basically I spoke and I gave the bill numbers to David, and then we were talking about the agenda, and I ended up realizing I was really late for this meeting. So that's why I'm still on my camera from my iPhone, and I'm going to switch over to my laptop. But I gave him the list of the bills, and from memory, I didn't, rushed out, and I thought I had brought the list with me. But basically, some of these things are really important. Like there's a streamlined process that Senator Wiener has for cities that would force them to do approvals of all solar panels for residential by a online process where it'd have to be approved in real time. And so cities would have to spend the cost to do that. And I gave that SB number
Yeah,
to,
that one's SB 379.
right. There's another one that is all similar to where the cities would have to have a expedited process for processing permits and have to put on their website samples of 5 different permits that they would approve to be able to guide people in a list of all the things that they have to do. So, which could vary, but they're requiring it to be, that's extra cost for cities to have to put that up there. And that one I know David gave, and then
That one's
the number 4.
AB 2234.
Yes, that's right. Then there's another one from Senator Wiener that he wants to enlarge the hours for alcohol to be sold until 4 a.m., which would then increase, the law enforcement costs and issues where people might be driving under the influence and damaging people that we'd have extra cost of services for, mostly with law enforcement and cost of lives potentially. So that was another one.
And that one's SB 930.
And then I'm trying to remember, there's some that I was thinking we might want to approve, like
there's one on
particularly for
tab-
Torrance. There's an open meetings, I think it's SB 1100.
B, could you hold on for 1 second?
Oh,
Jackie,
sure,
go
sorry.
ahead.
I was going to say there's, it's SB 1100, which is orderly conduct of meetings, and there's 2 bills on catalytic converters that, B has also asked to be added. And
Okay,
I'd like to say we just got them and we have not had a chance to look them up at all.
yeah, and I think it's probably the will of the board right now in regards to even taking up something so late in the game. I guess, is there anyone have any, my opinion is that if it doesn't need to be done tonight, we wait till this next steering committee. Just because I think that bills are complex and you can't get much in 2 minutes of talking about each. But I'd
This
love
is-
to
What
hear
I
what
was-
others.
What I was thinking is that if the board would delegate the authority to the legislative committee, which apparently is going to be meeting in I think the first week or so of August, then they could consider them at their meeting, and that could be then the board actions, is that more in-depth discussion could take place. So it's not that, I just wanted to give you an idea of the bills that I was suggesting we should look at, but it would be for the legislative committee to look at and then make the action that the board would delegate to them.
It's up to you. The legislative committee meets on the 10th and the steering committee meets on the 8th. And I know that these bills are moving. We can do either one.
Drew, comment?
Oh, I liked B's suggestion of having the legislative committee look at it. And just one clarification, I thought Wiener's bill regarding 4 a.m. bar closures was limited to like 4 different cities. might have
It
gotten
is
that
it is a trial project. And
Okay.
I'm not sure which cities are, but with respect to that, it just seems like that's something that would open the door for more, whoever those cities are. And I guess we could look at that, because I didn't have time to check which of the cities that he's proposing it happen in, but I'm pretty sure that it's in LA County, because Contract Cities is primarily LA County, and they took an opposition on that.
I think it was West Hollywood, Palm Springs, and 2 other cities, if I remember the briefing on the bill.
Okay.
Let me ask the group. I mean, it sounds like we might have a quorum at the steering committee where we would not at the legislative committee. So we could take immediate action on that. And I think that most of the legislative committee people are on the steering committee typically. So B, would that maybe work better? And it's actually a couple days before.
That's fine. I could try to be there for that portion. I mean, it usually falls on our council meeting, which is why I'm not able to go to the steering committee, but if there's a
During the
particular
day?
time.
No, it's during the middle of the day.
No, I know, but I'm usually, by the time I get our council agenda, then there's only that day to be able to make questions to our staff of the council agenda, because they give it to us Friday night sometimes. And so you can't talk to them over the weekend. So that's all. Yeah. But that's fine. I'll make every effort to help explain what I know about the bills.
Okay, Jackie, do we need to take a vote on sending it to
No,
the
we can
steering
forward
committee?
these to steering committee. And if I can just make just a suggestion, David and I are very receptive to bills that people are interested in and putting them on the matrix. We don't have to discuss it at a board meeting about whether to put it on a matrix. If a member is interested, let us know at any time and we'll bring them to the legislative or whatever committee. So next time, just let us know and we'll take it to the appropriate committee. We don't do it here.
Okay. I didn't know it was on consent. So that's why I thought I'd
Okay,
add
so
it.
we still need to vote on the consent calendar item. Is there a motion?
Boyle, so moved.
Second.
Okay, Cedric, second. Reverse roll call.
Any opposition? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Next item.
Next item is our Civic Spark presentations. We've had 2 exceptional people from Civic Spark, which is a state-funded, they subsidize for us young fellows who have done work in energy efficiency for us this year. And we have 2 that have worked for us for 11 months. And we thought it would be really important for you to hear what they've done. And I don't know, Kim, are you there? Do you want to say any more and introduce Anne?
Yeah.
Yes, I would love to. I also wanted to, so in addition to energy efficiency, they also did a lot of work on climate action planning, and specifically worked on getting greenhouse gas emission inventories updated and really looked at the energy use. So she was able to make a lot of progress in that area. And actually a little bit about Anne, she's gonna leave us to move on for graduate school, which is very exciting. And eventually, I think Sean is also going to be going off to graduate school. I think not this fall, but next fall. And so she'll be in the area and be working in the field. But with that, I'm not sure who's going to be starting. Who's going to actually?
We have Anne first.
We have Anne first. Okay, wonderful. And Anne, you want to go ahead and start then?
Sure, thank you. I just want to see if I can share my screen in a moment. Is that visible to everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome, thank you. Thank you all so much for the opportunity to be here tonight and to share this work with y'all. My name is Anne Yuntal, as Kim mentioned. I've been the Climate Action Planning Fellow for the South Bay COG for this Civic Spark service year. And then just a little on my background, I graduated from UCLA and I was doing research in sustainability metrics for the greater Los Angeles region. And I was excited to come to the COG to work on climate action planning. So I'm going to talk about some of the different components of the project, overall that I've been working on, and this kind of divides up into one sort of central umbrella project and then complementary projects around that. That main project is the greenhouse gas emissions inventory update that Kim mentioned. And a couple of steps that went into that. We're working on the climate planning working group and contacts list, data request templates and data collection, and specifically an energy related emissions analysis piece of that. And then related to that and around that, I also, over the course of the last 11 months, did an electricity related emissions inventory for the city of Rancho Palos Verdes, provided general research support for South Bay COG in related topic areas, specifically air quality and transportation related emissions, and have worked on initial research on a solar initiative for the COG and what that might look like. So first, I'm going to talk about the climate working group. Because the South Bay COG serves as a central hub to support all of our member cities in their climate related projects and promote that resource sharing, it was really important to us to have this, to really start this off as a collaboration. And for me, coming in, realizing that each member city has its own unique organizational structure for allocating climate related work is what department that falls under. We were able to engage with representatives from all of our member cities. And then we hosted a kickoff meeting in the fall, which 9 of our cities attended. The kind of output here is a tracker sheet to be maintained going forward of those climate contacts specific to each city to enable facilitating that communication and resource sharing. Then the main piece of getting the inventory process started with that background is the data request templates creation and then the data collection process itself. South Bay COG is a member of ICLEI for local governments and local governments for sustainability, which is an organization that provides protocols as well as an online portal called ClearPath that is a tool to create these emissions inventories. And ICLEI, as part of their services, provides sample request forms to guide data collection for an individual city. From this, we needed to then tailor those requests to not only a council of governments, we're serving all these different cities at the same time, but also specifically to each individual member city. There are different accounting methods, different pieces of data that might be relevant. So we did a lot of research and consulting with ICLEI to identify what calculation methods were most appropriate for the South Bay subregion and for individual cities. And then the output there was that we developed data requests for 4 different sectors or categories of emissions. And we personalized those by the data providing agency, by the city or group of cities that agency served, and then by the year, both 2019 and 2020. A couple of other milestones under this, once we've got those templates developed, we engaged with 6 external data providers for our different sectors. One of those was the Southern California Association of Governments, or SCAG. They provided data related to population characteristics as well as transportation sector emissions. And then we were able to support 9 cities in submitting their data requests to Southern California Edison and SoCalGas for electricity and natural gas usage data. And at this point, we've received complete energy data for 5 of the cities, which is great. We've also submitted requests to 5 different water service providers for data related to emissions resulting from water treatment and delivery, as well as a request to the LA County Sanitation District for wastewater related emissions. As we start to receive that data, we then work on entering it into the ClearPath portal. And the output there is that we've created inventories and partially completed that data entry process for those cities. And that will be something that the next fellow we plan to take up. So those next steps hopefully will be continued by our next fellow in this space. They will continue to connect with those data providers and our member cities and collaborate on gathering that necessary data and completing those calculations, the input into ClearPath, and then comparing those results to the past year's inventories that we have and presenting those findings to our cities. So diving into a slightly more specific facet of this analysis, I mentioned that we had these different sectors or categories of emissions. Those 5 categories in the ClearPath breakdown are energy, transportation, water, wastewater, and waste. Most of the emissions for the South Bay subregion, as well as the member cities, fall under those energy and transportation sectors. So looking at energy specifically, that includes residential, commercial, and sometimes industrial use of electricity and natural gas. And so that data comes to us from Southern California Edison and SoCalGas, and that request process goes through our cities. Couple of milestones here. We completed, as I mentioned, we completed energy data entry into that ClearPath portal for 2019 and 2020 for those 5 cities for which we've received complete data. Emissions factors for electricity, meaning what do the resulting emissions look like from that amount of energy used? And those come from Southern California Edison, as well as eGrid, which is a national database from the federal EPA. And then energy related emissions for 2019 and 2020, we were compared to past year's inventories to look at progress, look at where we're at then, where we're at now. Next steps are to complete that comparison and dig a little deeper into the multiple factors that go into that to help cities identify where they're at in relation to emissions reduction targets, to celebrate those successes and identify what changes they might want to make going forward to continue to meet future emissions reduction goals, or what other steps they have taken or might want to take going forward in that area. So that's kind of the overview of the main emissions inventory update project, but a lot of these side pieces fit in really nicely to it as well. So this was one of the pieces that I undertook earlier in the year. The city of Rancho Palos Verdes approached us to look specifically at their emissions from electricity. As I mentioned, the energy sector is made up of both electricity and natural gas use, but they were interested specifically in emissions from electricity. And they provided us with data for 2018, 2019, and 2020. And they wanted to use this information about emissions from their electricity use for those years to guide their decision about whether or not they were to participate in Clean Power Alliance. So we're able to collect that data, enter that into ClearPath, and export the results. And here's a sample of a figure that we're able to provide on that front. We've got the city of Rancho Palos Verdes community greenhouse gas emissions from electricity, measured in metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent for these selected years. 2005, 2007, 2010, and 2012 were the years of data for which we'd completed previous inventories. And then those more recent 3 years were the new data. You can see on here, commercial energy is in orange and residential is in yellow. And I just wanted to note, I think something interesting from this graph that we would look to at in the energy inventories for all of our cities going forward is to note that it's not necessarily a linear path. While you can see reductions over 2005 to 2020, sometimes year to year that's up and down, but we're really looking at for those reductions over time. Another piece of this project was research and data support for air quality and transportation. As I'm sure many have either participated in or seen, the South Bay COG team presents to various audiences, including policymakers, on past and planned work. And transportation-related greenhouse gas emissions are modeled based on vehicle miles traveled, VMT. Air pollutant emissions can be modeled from the same or similar data. So it was a very natural fit to kind of expand that scope a little bit. So a couple of different pieces of information that I identified over the year were total transportation sector greenhouse gas emissions for the subregion, NOx emissions reductions from potential conversion to electric vehicles, carbon dioxide equivalent emissions totals at various geographic scales. That's from international, national, state to local, and then creating some visualizations to communicate about the greenhouse effect and what that is. And then the last piece that I'll mention today is the solar initiative. This is a really initial research stage, but it's something we're very excited to look into because the South Bay COG supports energy efficiency projects. They have this kind of energy portfolio, but funding for building renewable energy resources typically comes from different sources than energy efficiency. So the South Bay COG wanted to explore how to increase solar energy resources and support its own operations in its member cities as kind of a separate bucket from the energy efficiency piece. So this is very much in the research stages. We were looking at various solar programs in other municipalities, identifying case studies, and putting that together into a draft memo outlining those potential program options, what those might look like. Lots of next steps here on gathering input from stakeholders and identifying a program structure and funding, and then implementation on that. If you have any questions, I'd love to try to answer them, but just wanted to say a big thank you to all of the partners and city staff who have worked with us and supported these projects.
And
thank you.
Thank you so much for everything you've done for the South Bay City Council of Governments, and of course, my city as well. You've always been very responsive, and the information really has helped us make some decisions that are important. So thank you, Ann. Any questions for Ann?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
I think you said the city of Rancho Palos Verdes used GHG emissions to decide whether to participate in the Clean Power Alliance. Why did they use that as a criteria? What were they what did the GHG emissions show them that said they should or should not participate in the Clean Power Alliance?
So I don't want to speak on their behalf. So
I want to hear your perspective.
Sure. I just want to add that caveat up front that, I don't know. I know that it was one factor. There were multiple factors that they were considering. I believe cost was among them, lots of other things. But one of them here was that participating in the Clean Power Alliance is a choice that's available to cities to choose to say that they want their power to come from cleaner grid sources, more renewable resources in their energy mix. And that can make a big difference than coming from SCE's general power mix. So make a big difference in the emissions regardless of their level of energy use. So even if their level of energy use was constant, if they switch to a cleaner power mix, that can help reduce their emissions. Does that make sense?
So were they looking to see whether they had high emissions? And if their emissions were very high, then they wanted to go to the Clean Power Alliance? Or were they looking to see whether there was no real change in their emissions? If so, they would not go with the Clean Power Alliance. But I'm just saying, I'm just trying to figure out why would their level of emissions help them make that decision?
Yeah, so Olivia, actually, it was like Ann said, it was one of the many factors. For us, we did want to have some data in terms of how we were doing. So that's important to us. And you could see from the graph that she prepared that there certainly is a reduction. It might not be year over year reduction, but at the end of the day, we also found that Edison had a green energy alternative as well, and that was not being promoted properly in our city. So we wanted to give that a try to promote that to our residents. But we also did want to see that we were making a difference. And you can see we were, but you could see 2020 as a spike. I'm sure most other cities have the same sort of energy spike when we all went to at-home computer usage.
Yeah, we
Thank you.
definitely, it's interesting to bring that up. The differences between 2019 and 2020 are why we're looking at doing complete inventories for both of those years. 2020 is a benchmark, a goal year in those climate action plans. They set X percentage of emissions reductions by 2020. But because 2020 was such an anomalous year, we talked to ICLEI and they said, yes, this is our recommendation, that we're, with a lot of cities, we're saying you should look at 2019 as well, just to kind of have both next to each other and get a little bit of a broader picture of where your city might be at in a less anomalous year.
Other questions? And thank you so much for everything you've done. Great presentation too.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, is Sean speaking as well? Oh, hi, Sean.
Hi. Sorry, should I go ahead and share my screen?
Yes,
Please.
please.
Okay. All right, let me hit the present button here. All right, can everybody see this?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having both me and Anne here tonight. My name is Sean Fujioka, and I will be presenting on my work with the COG for the last 11 months, specifically in energy efficiency. So I have a little quick intro on me. I was originally from Temecula, California, and I graduated from UCLA with a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Science and minors in Geography and GIS. And then right before starting my Civic Spark term with the COG, I was a Climate Action Corps Fellow with Tree People for a few months. So now getting into my work. So first, I'll be going over some project components that are in their implementation phase right now. And then the last part of my presentation will be going over components that are currently in their planning phase. So first, starting off here, energy benchmarking and AB 802 compliance. So for background, Energy Star Portfolio Manager, or ESPM for short, is a secure, free, interactive online tool to track properties' energy use over time. The COG has been using this tool to track benchmark city accounts, like SoCal Gas and SoCal Edison accounts since 2018, with gas usage spanning back to 2017 and electric spanning to 2018. And then ESPM can also be used to satisfy California Benchmarking Program, or AB 802 requirements, which require that owners of buildings greater than 50,000 square feet submit annual benchmarking reports to the California Energy Commission by June 1st. And then overall, the COG staff have benchmarked 586 SoCal Edison and SoCal Gas accounts, a majority of which were added by the start of my term. So getting into milestones since the start of my term, all 9 cities that were assisted by the COG in 2022 are currently compliant with AB 802 requirements. So this means that I worked with these particular cities to obtain the necessary data, approve their report, and then finally submit it to the California Energy Commission. I also conducted 8 ESPM presentations and trainings for these cities, whether that be individually, if so desired, or in group settings, as well as in working groups. I also worked with cities to obtain scissor forms, 9 of which are submitted as of today, which will allow for ongoing reporting and analysis of energy data in ESPM. And then I am currently finalizing resources to guide future staff in carrying out this project. So moving forward, the next steps are to continue assisting cities in submitting annual reports, educating more cities in using ESPM to track their energy usage and identify opportunities for projects, maintain city properties in ESPM, and ensure their monthly energy use data is up to date. And then further down the line, renew cities' scissor forms as they will expire in 2025. And then fun fact, I included some pictures on here that were in this year's AB 802 reports. So the one in the bottom left is Torrance City Hall, middle is Carson Community Center, and then on the right is the Hawthorne Police Department. So next thing up is encouraging city and school district SoCalRun enrollment. So SoCalRun, for those of you who don't know, is an organization that provides no-cost services to enrolled members in identifying and implementing energy efficiency projects. Some milestones since the start of my term are that 2 agencies in the South Bay have enrolled in SoCalRun. Next steps are to continue enrolling agencies. The numbers here are the ones that are remaining in the South Bay. And then using research that I collected on city projects and school districts to inform future meeting discussions and project implementation. All right, next, the South Bay Environmental Services partner meetings, Environmental Services Center partner meetings. They're held monthly to help the COG identify programs and help city residents and businesses to act on them, as well as encourage collaboration among partners. So since the start of my term, I have participated in 10 of these meetings and have streamlined the agenda planning process so that the COG can think about meeting materials ahead of time. And then next steps are for staff to utilize the guide that I created also for this particular component in managing future meetings. All right, so now I'm going to switch into the planning project components here. So the facility equipment inventory, this is an initiative in collaboration with SoCalRun. So for background, the COG has wished to have a system to keep track of city energy related assets and replacement schedules to plan for and identify any opportunities. So since the start of my term, I developed a literature review on previously existing inventories, a proposed work plan that has since been used to help inspire other work plan documentation, and other research in identifying potential platforms to house data for the inventory. So next steps are to finalize like the work plan and next steps, select sites and conduct site visits. The site visits specifically will be done by my Civic Spark successor, and then eventually select a platform to house the data and make it accessible for city staff. All right, and then last but not least, the recognition program, which is another initiative in partnership with SoCalRun. In the past, the COG has recognized city progress as part of the Energy Leader Partnership with SoCal Edison, which unfortunately ended in 2019. Since then, the COG has wished to develop a new system to recognize cities, specifically tracking progress with items such as energy efficiency projects, greenhouse gas emissions reductions, implementation of climate action plans, as well as ESPM benchmarking initiatives and actions completed with SoCalRun. So since the start of my term, I have developed, again, another literature review of previously existing award programs and certifications to help draw inspiration for best practices for the COGS program. And I gave a presentation of these findings at one of SoCalRun's previous roundtables. And then finally, exciting as of today, finalized the draft of the program, including all of the nitty-gritty details such as how to track progress when cities should be completing actions, as well as digestible like flyer documents and like a tracker to accompany the guideline document as well for cities to reference. Thanks so much for COG staff that are on this line for all the feedback on these materials. Would not be possible without that. And the next steps are to incorporate feedback from the SoCalRun into the draft, and then develop a communication plan, meaning how to promote the program to cities, where to house the materials for it on the COG website. And then this program will roll out starting in 2023. And then I just want to take a moment to thank the partners and cities staff that worked with the COG on these projects, and a special thanks to Kim and Sam at the COG for all their guidance and support over the past 11 months. But thank you so much for listening. Please feel free to ask any questions now or at my email later.
Thank you, Sean. Any questions?
You can see that these fellows were incredibly valuable to us, doing the kind of work that we need to help our cities, but that, you know, we can't board down as well as they can. So we're just greatly indebted to them.
Absolutely. I don't see any questions, although I see a very limited screen. Does anyone have questions?
John,
All
can
right.
you take your PowerPoint down?
Take your
Oh,
power.
yeah, sure.
Thank you.
You did such a great job that everyone knows exactly all the amazing things you've done.
Definitely, of course. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
John, are you, we have something for you to recognize Anne and Sean.
Do you have the certificates to show them?
David? We're going to be presenting this to Anne for her work. And John, did you want to do this?
Sure, absolutely. So Anne, of course, thank you for everything you've done. She's leaving us the 1st of August. You're going to school for your master's degree at UC Santa Barbara, and your degree is going to be a master's in environmental science and management. That's great. She has done a tremendous job, obviously, in tracking down data sets, as she just showed us, for city greenhouse gas emissions inventories, numerous hours working with a calculator tool and following up with the cities that needed her help. So with that, Anne, thank you.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you.
Okay, and the next one is for Sean. So she's looking for towards going for her master's degree next fall. So you can see why they're leaving us. They're going for more education and going to get a lot smarter even. In the meantime, she plans on doing environmental field work. She's also, for us, has worked tirelessly with utility companies to collect data on behalf of the cities, and was instrumental in setting up 2 new programs, which will start at the end of this year, beginning in 2023, a city facility equipment inventory and a city recognition program. Thank you for everything, Sean.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. All right, next item.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. And I'm glad we wanted to share with you how the resources we bring to the COG that are just so exciting. The next item is the transportation reports. And this month there was no Metro meeting to report, but I'm going to call on Steve to talk about anything he wants to bring up besides a focus on goods movement, which we're going to talk about a little bit.
So as Jackie said, the committees didn't meet at Metro and the board didn't meet this month, so it was very quiet. They're preparing for the upcoming call for projects for the COG and other COGs around the county. We'll come back to you next month with more details on that process. And in September, we plan on kicking that process off. So I think that's it for now.
Okay. You talked about it. Mark has his hand up.
Mark?
Yes, I just wanted to let you know we've got some community meetings coming up in the month of August. I'll put them in the chat. This is for the Sea Lion extension to Torrance. We're going to be having 4 meetings. We're going to be having one in the city of Torrance on August 16th at the Torrance Cultural Arts Center in the Toyota Meeting Room Hall. Then we're going to have a meeting in the city of Lawndale on August 17th at Lusinger High School. And then we're also going to be having a virtual meeting on Monday, August 15th. And we're going to kick the whole thing off with a meeting in Redondo Beach on Thursday, August 11th at Adams Middle School Gym. And so I just wanted to keep the South Bay COG apprised of those upcoming meetings.
Thank you so much, Mark. Appreciate that.
And Steve, you did talk about briefly about the goods movement, right? No.
No, I didn't. I thought you said we were going to talk about that.
No. Okay. Well,
Go ahead.
Let me just start the goods movement meeting, the goods movement focus. We've been talking, and we will be bringing to the transportation committee a letter talking about the impacts that may exist, or reviewing the impacts that may exist from the Metro's decision not to build any improvements on the 710 freeway, and how that might overflow onto the 110 and areas in the South Bay. So we want to raise that issue to Metro. And in doing so, we started a discussion about the fact that I think it was like 6 or 8 years ago or something like that, we had an incredible series of workshops on goods movement. who are the stakeholders, how does it work, what's happening in the water, what's happening on land. And it was for board members and city staff. And it was a really, really great primer on what's going on down there and what you should know for your cities. We did it in conjunction with the Center for International Trade and Transportation, CITT, which comes out of Cal State Long Beach, and also is affiliated with Metrans from USC. And we have contacted them again, and we're going to be setting up meetings to plan new curricula. And we probably either fall or starting in 2023, we'd like to hold a series of workshops again. And we think it's timely, and you'll find them very interesting. So that's just a heads up. And so if you have any specific questions that you want to learn about goods movement, please let me know, and we'll make sure to sort of discuss them in our curriculum discussions.
Let me add a couple sentences on the goods movement piece. As you know, the port has been growing. Even during the pandemic, it grew. And the problem is that we're reaching capacity on the 710 freeway. Metro a couple of months ago, or last month, decided to not expand the capacity of the 710 corridor, but rather to focus on clean fuels and the environmental impacts that the trucks have on surrounding neighborhoods. So they terminated the EIREIS on the 710 project. And we've just drafted a letter that would go to Metro saying that we're concerned about the spillover effect on the 110 freeway. If you're not going to expand the 710 freeway and that freeway starts to get jammed and you're not going to be able to use the streets because they have got trucks in distribution mode, folks are just going to go over the bridge to San Pedro and come up the 110. And so they're going to undertake a study, and originally they were only going to look at the 710. We've asked them in this letter to also include the I-110 in any future analysis so that we get a complete picture of where trucks will go when they come out of the port in the future.
Thank you, Steve. I could attest that trucks are already starting to use the 110 more and more frequency, having my office in San Pedro. So thank you for that. Any questions of Steve?
I think Cedric has his hand up.
Oh, he does. Oh, sorry, Cedric. I'm new at this stuff here. Go ahead,
Nope.
Cedric.
I'll take my time, no problem. Steve, the information that you gave, I was actually a board member who was working with the 710 expansion. And the residents who lived along that 710 freeway were adamant of not having eminent domain take over their housing. But my biggest concern was the ports as they grow and as they continue to grow, that it's going to become a problem on all of our highways in the South Bay area.
Right.
And hopefully at some point, I don't know what can be done to try and reconstitute that committee that I was on, but we used to meet in Downey. And I think it is very important that we still push to get that freeway expanded. It's no way it's going to be able to sustain the traffic. I mean, I drive it almost every other day, and it's dangerous to some degree in a car with those big 16-wheelers going up and down the freeway. So I just think that at some point in time, I don't know what we can do as the COG, Jackie, but there needs to be something to really address that is going to impact the South Bay greatly.
Well,
so if I can respond first, Jackie.
Sure.
The focus at the ports is always on the gateway cities COG. And that's why they focused on the 710. And I was going to meetings that when you were on that other panel, I was sitting in the audience watching, but there was very little opportunity for the South Bay to play a central role in that discussion because it was totally focused on the 710. And that's why I think it's important for us to be asking Metro to expand their analysis to include both the 110 and the 710, since we can be central on the 110 and the two will work symbiotically, I think, if we can do proper coordination between the two corridors.
I would also say that it turns out that we've had this discussion several times, not recently, but we are a council of governments. And in gateway cities, the port is actually a member of the gateway councils of governments, Port of Long Beach. And the Port of Louisiana years ago asked if they couldn't be a member of our Council of Governments. I'm not suggesting that, but we could have a more active relationship with the ports. We could also invite them to be a member, but I think that one of the things, Cedric, that you're suggesting, and I think it might be a great idea, is to reconstitute that committee, but not make it an I-710 goods movement committee. Make it a goods movement committee that covers all of the aspects of the traffic that the goods movement are. I mean, it was narrow, and that's why nobody looked at what it was going to mean for the rest of us.
I think it's a national gateway committee.
Right. We could call it we could
Or
suggest.
the freight gateway or something to that effect.
Very interesting. Thank you.
That's very good. I forgot to actually mention that I recently had lunch with who's a candidate for CD15, Tim McCosker, and I don't know if he's going to win or not, but I think he's the front runner. And he said if he does win, he wants to really become engaged in the South Bay City Council of Government. He really believes in COGS, and so that could, regardless of who wins, though, we're really going to try to get that CD15 more involved with the COG, because that's important. Barry, you have a question, comment?
Well, first, just a bit of an oddity. Tim McCosker years ago was the city attorney for the city of Lomita. But back on goods movement, this is a really big deal. And I would like to see us do something that really crosses over, like, what we're talking about here, not just talking about 710 or 110. And also, I'd suggest that we team up with the SBACC, the South Bay Association of Chambers of Commerce, and get their participation on it. This is one of these things where, if we don't do it right, it's not going to be a win-win. It's going to be a lose-lose. So I'd really like to see us do something like that.
One of the reasons we're involved with Tom O'Brien at the Center for International Trade and Transportation in Long Beach is that he is very well connected, both in the region here, also at the state level and at the national level. And so, and also he used to, I guess, work at the COG when he was a puppy. So there's an affinity with
well. Yeah, Tom understands us very well, and he's a great resource for us. And he knows
his limitations are academic, and our strength is advocacy. So I think it would make a good match. And Jackie and I are going to be sitting down with him. I think in the next couple of weeks, we're trying to get a date together to kind of frame this up more explicitly. And I think David's coming too. He doesn't know it yet, but he's coming too.
Perfect. Thanks, Steve. Very great comments. Wally?
Yeah, hi. For what it's worth, I just saw on Spectrum News a piece on West Athens, which is, I think, in the South Bay.
Unincorporated community of
yeah,
South Bay.
and it was about a truck storage out of the port in the West Athens area, which has got the residents very upset. So I think if we're looking at trade movement, freight movement, we also might want to look at freight storage, what's happening with trucks, warehousing,
absolutely,
and so forth. It should be a whole system approach, because I was unaware of it, but there is this problem with where they're parking the trucks.
Well, a decade ago, the trucks all went out to the Inland Empire where they were doing their transloading to go across the country. But now, in order to save money, they're trying to come back to the port and have a reduction in vehicle miles traveled. But there's no place for them to go immediately adjacent to the port. Those facilities are all used up. So they keep growing, and now they've gotten up to West Athens, I guess.
Hey, Wally, do you know where you saw that? Because I'm actually talking to Caltrans on those properties. They're interested in using those properties once this backlog is over for potentially affordable housing development.
It's not going to be over.
Actually, sadly, I have Spectrum as an ISP, but also it's a cable company. And so when you turn it on, it automatically goes to channel 1, which is their Spectrum News. And it was about a 3 or 4 minute segment on Spectrum Channel 1, which, by the way, they do it great. I mean, they're headquartered in El Segundo, probably thanks to True, but so I'm sure you can get it from them. It's like a 3 or 4 minute segment. It was pretty informative. And it wasn't
check out the website.
It is Caltrans property, exactly right.
But I do think that Steve is right. The ports are not going to get any smaller. They're going to just keep getting bigger. So I don't know if those properties will become available. But the point is that this workshop we're working on, this series of workshops, when we did it last time, we talked about who the stakeholders were, what happens on land, what happens in the water, where the goods are going. And so we're going to try to give you a real a little course on what goods movement means to the region and to the South Bay.
I think we called it Battle for the Curb.
No, I think it was
That was
something
a
else.
separate one. That was a separate one we did.
Okay, next item on the Transportation Committee reports is we have a Measure M letter. We've been requested by Redondo Beach to submit a project amendment for them. Steve, do you want to go through that?
Yeah, the city of Redondo Beach has a small triangular parcel. And the parcel is partly in public ownership and partly privately owned. And the city is wants to use the Measure M funding to purchase the remaining piece of that triangle. And I'm trying to see what page the drawing is on. They aren't numbered in here, so. And anyway, they want to use it for a bikeway hub. There are several bike paths that kind of cross in this vicinity and come into the intersection. And they want to, rather than going over to a commercial center or someplace, they want to create a dedicated bicycle hub with things like bicycle repair, bicycle parking. And so they're asking for our support in this project, and we've got a letter recommending that it be approved.
We also have
And it's off cycle because typically they make these applications in September and we approve them in February, and then Metro approves them in July or so. But this one, they need to take action now because it's a piece of real estate that the private owner is willing to sell. And if he can't sell it, he wants to develop it himself. So,
Mr. Chair, we have Ted Saman here, who's the Public Works Director in Redondo Beach.
hey,
Hi,
Ted.
Ted. You want to
Hello,
say a
everybody.
few words?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say thank you to Steve and for the advocacy for this project. This really fell into our lap, like Steve mentioned. The property owner, it's a 6,300 square foot triangular corner piece, actually, of the intersection of Grant and Inglewood, that he was approaching the city to actually acquire the city property, which we have a portion of public roadway, about 13,000, and approximately 1,630 square feet of a city-owned parcel adjacent to that. We did have some discussions with our council. The council's preference is to actually acquire that property and really improve that as a hub for our bicycle network. We have multiple projects that are outlined in the materials that you have. There's a $6.6 million MAT grant project that's working the Ripley Grant Redondo Beach Boulevard area. We have a $1 million contract with Metro under Measure M, as a matter of fact, to extend the existing Edison right-of-way bicycle facility that comes up to Inglewood. And then we also have this other project that we're asking for the additional funding for that actually connects the North Redondo Beach bike path to the MAT grant project that's being proposed, and it connects to this particular corner. So it really makes it a nice hub that connects all these bicycle facilities together. We are developing our transit center on Kingsdale on the other side of the railroad track. Metro is looking at making improvements either to bring the Line C extension down the right-of-way or along Hawthorne Boulevard. But in either case, this will make a good connection to not only the transit center, but also to the South Bay Galleria, and then again, the continuation through Redondo Beach Boulevard. So this would be a great opportunity. It fell into our laps as we were developing our budget, and really we got the support of the owner to sell the property to us right at the time that our council was adopting their budget. So this would be a great addition if we can garner your support. We've talked to the Metro staff. Metro staff is supportive of the project. And the reason we asked for the urgency to bring it to your board here is that they're willing to incorporate this into their Metro board report material that goes in September for the Measure M allocations.
And they've asked for $1.535 million for the property acquisition and to do some additional design work. And the city would then come back for the construction funds on this at some future date.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, Ted. B?
Yeah, I've just wanted to ask some questions about this because, I mean, our city does not use any transportation funds, so we have no dog in this fight. But just looking at it, and just so everybody knows, any transportation funds we get, we have to gift or exchange to other cities. So I'm looking at it from the standpoint of, we have fund of Measure M monies. And with regard to this particular ask, going to be over $1,500,000 because there's going to be costs of sale that is going to be to purchase this corner of the property. And it's going to go to the ownership of Redondo Beach in perpetuity. And I understand that Metro will monitor the use of the property during the time of the grant. But it seems to me that if it's a project that's supposed to benefit all of the South Bay cities as a whole, that there should be contribution from the city of Redondo Beach if you're going to be getting some land that is going to be Redondo Beach owned property before that. So it's not just totally funded by the grant, because this is a project that appears to primarily benefit Redondo Beach as opposed to the South Bay as a whole. And it's not clear to me why the project, because we're talking about bicycles here, we're not talking about a rest stop where you would need multiple parking spaces for automobiles. But since Redondo Beach owns the majority of that quadrant, it doesn't appear clear to me why there would be a need to obtain this land at over $1,500,000, be able to do a rest stop, to be able to take care of these issues. Because it seems to me there are other ways in which, because it was described in the letter that it would be to rest and gather the people who are using bicycles. And I understand that they might have like some ways to pump up bicycle tires if needed or so forth. But other than that, I mean, one would think that they would stop at a fast food restaurant or at a mini mart or something. And those are other venues where they could gather and rest and get refreshment rather than, or take use the restroom rather than have this spot. So I don't know how utilized it would be for all the funds that are going to be devoted, because there's still construction costs which are not being factored in here. That's going to be after the fact. So I just want to pose these questions because I'm concerned about the utility for the South Bay as a whole.
Ted, do you want to respond to that?
I sure could. I mean, I think Inglewood Avenue is a significant arterial roadway in the South Bay. It's not something unique to the city of Redondo Beach. The South Bay Bicycle Network, this is all our connectivity. It's in line with the South Bay Bicycle Network and the analysis that was done for the South Bay cities. The corner itself is the private property. It's 6,300 square feet. The city owns the remainder of the areas behind it. The value that we're asking is nothing more than the appraised value, and that's what the city council authorized us to offer, and that's what the property owner has accepted. If you don't have the corner, you don't have the connectivity to the bicycle facilities that are going to be there on Inglewood. You won't have that for the bicycle network that's going to be on Grant. That's really the connection point. That's why we're looking at this as the hub to bring that connection. The South Bay itself is all interconnected. Our North Redondo Beach bike path, which goes through the Edison right-of-way, goes all the way and makes its way through to Robinson. At Robinson, there are plans to connect that all the way up to Manhattan Beach Boulevard, which is a major employment hub for the city of Redondo Beach and for the South Bay. It is significantly used by commuters, by recreational riders, and many others. So this is not a Redondo Beach centric benefit. It's really a South Bay benefit to do this. And the development will include the remaining 14,600 square feet behind it. It is not just going to be
the city's match is the additional property in the triangle. And they've already invested in it. We're just finishing it off with Archer.
I guess I don't understand why the square footage that the city of Redondo Beach already has at that location isn't sufficient for a hub that's involving bicycles. I mean, how many bicycles are you considering they're going to be meeting at one given time that would necessitate having this corner lot for the cost of over 1.5 million? That's what I'm saying, because either at this point, because of where Redondo Beach's locations are, bicyclists can enter on Grant Avenue or on Inglewood Avenue because they own frontage on both streets. So I don't understand why the corner is essential to be able to have a hub. It doesn't make sense to me.
I guess the best way to explain that is the corner is the disconnect between the portion that the city owns and the connection of all those other streets. Otherwise, you're right, they'd have to be circling around and not necessarily having that connectivity, having that become an inviting place that's known for all the bicyclists to congregate and do what they need to do.
And if you had a private development on that corner, it would block visibility of the hub. You'd never know it was there.
Absolutely.
So if we're going to bring a new facility to the South Bay and create an integrated network which connects several different routes, you need to do it in a visible way. And putting it on the corner like that is the way to do it in my mind.
Okay.
Well, I don't know that, yeah, we'd want bicyclists to be getting in the corner with cars turning around the corner. That would end up being some traffic problems, but I think that there's sufficient area. I think there's no problem doing a hub there, but I think the city of Redondo Beach should contribute to land that they're going to own in perpetuity, not ask that the grant subsidize the entire cost of the land that's going to go into ownership for the city of Redondo Beach, when there could be these monies could be used for other cities in the South Bay that would have more of an impact, especially since we're getting to the point where the funds for Measure M are going to be limited. I don't think that we should limit ourselves that way by putting in at least 1.5 million and could be more by the time the costs are figured. And then added on to that is going to be construction costs. So when other projects could be denied because we approve this.
Okay. So there was a recommendation from the staff to increase the amount. What is the actual recommendation, Jackie or David?
I'll read it to you. It says, recommend the South Bay COG Board of Directors approve the amendment to the Measure M annual program update to program 1.535 million for amended design and right-of-way acquisition for project MM 4602.09.
Okay, is there a motion?
I would make a motion that we approve if Redondo Beach pays 1/2 of the cost of the sale of the property. If they subsidize that from Redondo Beach, since they're going to be the owners of the property.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's an amended motion on the floor.
Amended motion. Thank you, Steve.
Sorry.
This is
Okay,
Jim.
Jim seconded. So David?
Sure,
I
let
think
me.
you might want to do a roll call on this one.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Okay, Carson,
No.
El Segundo,
No.
Gardena,
No.
Hawthorne,
No,
Hermosa Beach, not present, Inglewood, Lawndale,
It's not here.
not here, Lamita,
Yes.
LA City's not here, Manhattan Beach,
No.
Palos Verdes Estates,
Yes.
Rancho Palos Verdes,
No.
Redondo Beach is not here, Rolling Hills,
Yes.
Rolling Hills Estates,
Yes.
Torrance,
Yes.
LA County District 2, not present, LA County District 4.
I'll abstain, David.
Okay, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 no votes. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yes votes. So the motion does not pass.
Okay, and B, I liked where you were heading with these discussions. I guess I would encourage, because I've been attending the Transportation Committee meetings, and I would encourage all of you attend those the best you can, because I think that it's good to make sure that these projects are robust for the whole South Bay. And I hear where you're coming from, B. So I would encourage all of you to participate in that. And that way, by the time it gets to the board, it's not kind of coming to us at the last minute on a motion like that. But thank you, B, for bringing those points up. Okay, so there was a staff recommendation. Is there a motion for that? Anyone?
Well, so
Okay,
Motion by Drew Boyles.
yeah, is there a second?
And just clarification, so that's approving our participation in the project?
Approving the
Yes,
staff recommendations.
staff
for private
recommendation.
funding.
Which would be including the cost of the full cost of the property being borne by the grant.
At this point, I'd like to say something, Mr. Chair, if I could.
Yes,
We've
please.
approved millions and millions of dollars of projects that have included right-of-way purchases for cities. And this is a very similar one. It fits into our local travel network. Hopefully, they're going to coordinate with that. It's if we wanted to go back and review all of the projects that we've bought right-of-way on, then I think that might be appropriate. But to take this opportunity for Redondo Beach, something that's coming that they might not get again, for something that we support, which is more bicycles in the South Bay. I don't think it's right for us to engineer it tonight. We've looked at it, Metro's looked at it, and I would strongly urge you to support it.
I second the motion.
Moved and seconded. I would do a regular roll call for this one as well.
Yep. Okay.
And I would just simply say this was brought up basically a little more than 10 days ago by City Redondo Beach. And normally these projects are brought in February. So this is a last minute thing. So that's all I'm trying to say in relationship to that. There wasn't that robust discussion we normally have of these projects.
Point taken.
Okay, so roll call vote on the staff recommendation motion. Carson. Cedric. Okay, El Segundo.
Yes. My phone.
Oh, okay.
I'm here.
Thank you. Boyles.
Thought he said yes.
yes
already.
again.
Okay, thank you. Gardena.
Yes.
Hawthorne.
Yes.
Ramos is not here. Inglewood. Lawndale's not here. Lamita.
Yes.
LA is not here. Manhattan Beach.
Yes.
Palos Verdes Estates.
Abstain.
Rancho Palos Verdes.
Yes.
Redondo Beach is not here. Rolling Hills.
No.
Rolling Hills Estates.
Yes.
Torrance.
Yes.
LA County District 2 is not here. And LA County District 4.
I'll abstain on this as well, David.
Okay. So on this one, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 yeses, 2 abstentions, and a no. So the motion passes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item.
Okay, our next item, we're now on COG programs, and I am pleased to report that we are bringing the budget back because we found, after looking at it over and over again, that we were not comfortable with the budget that you passed because it appeared not to be, something appeared to be wrong. We found an inaccuracy and are able to now come back to you with a balanced budget. And I'm going to call on Marnie to present it and then ask for, we thought it was sufficient enough that you should readopt the budget now.
Thank you. So I'll go ahead and share my screen for a real brief PowerPoint. As Jackie said, this is a revised budget. Marty,
we can't see your screen.
uh,
It's scrolling.
Sorry about that. Something happened.
There it is.
So here's our revisions. The first is our Metro Vanpool shared mobility grant revenue. We had included $50,000 in the budget, but afterwards found that the likelihood of receiving it had been decreased. So instead we put it in the potential revenue and took it out of the budget balancing. The next item was management services that had been double counted in both its own line and then in the contractual services line. So when we take it out of the contractual services line, we go from about 2.4 million in that line to almost 2 million. And if you'll recall, when the budget was adopted, unreserved fund balance was being used to the tune of about 400,000. With these two revisions to the budget, that use of unreserved fund balance goes down to about 20,000. So we did this chart of an overview of the budget when you adopted it. And so we have revised it to be what it would be with the revisions. So revenues need to be increased almost 9%. Expenditures still exceed the revenue increase, but instead of being around 19%, it's only 9%. So that gives us a deficit of 20,000, which, as we mentioned in the previous slide, will use the unreserved fund balance. And with that, can take any questions you might have.
Can you stop sharing your screen?
I am doing that. There you go.
Thank you. Any questions for Marnie? Oh, B, go ahead. And you're muted.
Yes, thank you. Yes, since the issue was they had double booked for you, if you will, Jackie Beckrick and Associates for the 432,000 for both contractual services and management services. How come the difference that you just put on your screen just now between last month's budget and this month's budget is only 410,372 when it was supposedly putting in Jackie Beckrick and Associates twice, and that's 432,000.
So that's the that number is both revisions. So we took some revenue out as well. So that offsets it and reduces the amount that the budget is not balanced by. So there's two revisions, not just the double counting.
Do you need to share your screen again? Hold on. You need to share the screen again so that we can see that.
Yeah, the 50,000 was in revenue, but that doesn't account the difference between 410,000 and 432,000. So that's why I was asking, because it was on the, only on the expenditure side that you were saying, according to what I saw on the slide, that there was an additional, or the difference between last month's budget and this month's budget was 410,372. The amount change for the estimated expenditures alone. So I don't understand if the expenditure for Jackie Bacharach and Associates was double booked, you know, under both lines for contractual services and management services, why doesn't it equal the amount of Jackie Bacharach and Associates cost?
I'm looking at the line detail. And compare that. Looking at the wrong one. You know what? I don't have that in front of me. Can I get back to you on that?
Well, we're voting on the revised budget, so that's why I was trying to find out what happened on that, why it was over, what double booked, and then if so, why is the difference only 410,372 when Becky Bacharach and Associates is 432,600?
Mr. Chair, maybe we
Yeah,
can,
and I,
Go ahead, Jackie.
well, wait, maybe we can, I mean, if we can't answer this question tonight, we should postpone it.
Okay, I was almost
We
going to
already have an
suggest,
adopted budget, but we wanted to do this budget. And we might want to get Mayor Chen's question, and then if we can't answer it, we'll just postpone it.
okay, that's fine. Okay, B, we probably will have to postpone the vote. Good question. George?
Yeah, thank you for the report, Marnie. I had a, in the chat room, I just put, you know, maybe for the future. For those of us who do look at the package, it may be good to use a color code to see what
You
changed.
mean all of us?
Yeah, and then also, did you say that it was some, I thought I heard you in the beginning, you said there was some, it was a error that was caught? Was that
Yes.
correct? And,
yes,
okay, do you know what was the process that alerted whoever that there was an error? I'm trying to understand the process. And then the last question, I'll ask all the questions that you can answer, is that, you know, in the future, I might not be the one here. If it's possible to have the PowerPoint presentation done in the package, that would be easier as a, you know, for folks to read the stuff. This is just a suggestion.
Kim, do you want to answer how we got to this?
Sure. So part of it was there was some changes in staff. I think I know I was out on vacation and we're in the process of doing the budget. And when I came back, it was actually already going to steering committee, but it didn't make sense to me. So because I do all the programs and I'm monitoring the budget pretty closely, and it was too high. And so we just did a methodical, you know, check. I said, okay, well, that means we have to be spending too much. So what are staffing costs? So we double check that. No, those were fine. So, okay, well, it's not staffing costs. That means it has to be in contracts. So what does that look like? And sort of through this methodical process that Marnie conducted, she found that it was a double counting. And Marnie, I'm wondering if the number was accidentally left in. I was trying to see what Jackie Bacharach's contract was last year, if that number.
It was 420,000.
Okay, so that's not the number either. So we just need to double check it.
Yep. Yeah, just don't have right in front of me this evening.
Okay,
So the
Sufficient
bottom line is
backup
it
to answer it.
bottom line is it just didn't make sense to me, so we double checked it.
okay, well, we'll bring it back then for the next meeting with the information for B and others.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Marty. Next item.
Next item is SCAG REAP, and I know Wally's here. I don't know if he wants to say anything, but we have 3 projects now. As you know, we all finished the SB 330 project, which was an application that we gave to our cities. This is really interesting. HCD, I guess there was a possible objection because HCD had one guidance on one thing and one on another. So we had to go back and get another legal review for the cities, but we did, and the application is fine. And so cities can now use that for when they need to, when housing proposals come in. We have 3 other projects. One is the ADU project, which has started. We've gone to throughout, Wally took a driving tour throughout the South Bay and looked at some ADUs, and he can amplify on that. We're going to look at what actually is the use of ADUs and what is the affordability of ADUs. Then we're also doing a project on commercial redevelopment, areas that are not commercially viable or underperforming, and whether they would be good for a possible conversion to housing. And our last one is another call to action for you again, because we're planning a series of housing education seminars. And this is the same kind of thing as the goods movement, except we're hoping to do it in the fall. We're going to have 10 sessions, which we are hoping to involve your planning commissioners, yourselves, and anybody else you think would be interested in your city family on what is affordable housing, how do we get to RENA, how do we get to the place we're in right now, what does a developer mean when he says, this project won't pencil, you have to do this for me. So we really want to have a whole series of and answer your questions on housing. And right now we're creating the curricula, and we are looking for, we have about 5 people on an advisory committee that are going to help us with that curricula. And if anybody else is interested, we have not started yet on that committee, so please let me know. Wally, did you want to add anything?
Not really. You did a great job. I would say that one of the anomalies we found in looking at the ADU data is that very few ADUs have actually been built compared to those permitted. And so we're looking into that. It appears that there's a time lag, which is that it takes actually longer over sort of the reporting areas, the reporting timeframes to build. So we're just trying to figure out what the phenomenon is, because I know that there is a hope that ADUs can help address the RENA targets. So we'll see.
Thanks, Wally. Interesting, our city actually is going to be talking about ADUs on Tuesday, even though we're being told that we need to have ADUs, there is no requirement for them to actually be low income. And so our concern is that people are turning ADUs potentially into weight rooms, garden centers, whatever else. And so we're going to actually ask the state, the HCD, to look at making them low income and for the use that we thought that they wanted those ADUs built for in the first place. So we'll let you know how that vote goes.
I think you can't claim them in your very low and low income unless you can unless you can prove that they are actually occupied by those folks. I did ask SCAG what sort of enforcement occurs other than the city. In other words, and all this low income stuff, the city are being enforced by HCD, but what happens after that? Who actually rents these things? And no one is actually looking at that, although I heard that the city of Inglewood has a deed restrictions on them. But I think it's pretty bad. It's pretty sloppy in terms of HCD coming back and saying, yeah, I made you do it, but I'm actually not going to make the landowner do it. So.
Right. Thank you, Wally. All right, Jackie, next item.
The next item is, my screen just changed. The next item is for Ronson. We're going to talk about homeless services.
All right, so a couple of weeks ago, we asked for a a welcome kit drive. And so we actually found a Girl Scout troop that is willing to donate and spend some time putting together welcome kits. Just a reminder, we're actually housing quite a lot of people with our emergency housing vouchers and just housing people in general, which is a good thing. And so, you know, we need to provide them with welcome kits. If you can remember back to when you're renting apartment days, it's a pretty coin to, you know, stock up with like toilet paper, paper towels, cleaning equipment. And so we want to provide that stuff for our newly housed neighbors. The next thing wanted to update, you know, our innovation funds is moving along really well. The Hermosa Beach Homeless Court just opened this past week. So congrats to them, had a good turnout. So it's the Redondo Beach Homeless Court is managing it. And so they're gonna have it at the Hermosa Beach site for the next 4 court sessions. And on our social media campaign, you'll see on our future posts some information about the people that are attending the homeless court there. And we're looking to promote some feel-good stories coming out of there shortly. Some other updates. Let's see, we're also looking at, Torrance is also looking at opening their homeless court soon. We had a meeting about that. LA CADA, the Hawthorne LA CADA project is going well. They're seeing about 50 to 60 people a quarter and getting those people to services. They've housed about 8 people the last quarter and many more put in shelters. Where they're also utilizing the beds that we're funding. We funded 4 beds, but they actually have given us 6 to 7 beds just because there's been more demand for it. So all's well on the innovation front. Also wanted to share some resources. Bill Uphoff, Councilmember Uphoff, shared this. A share for those of you in cities with the Sheriff's Department, there is a special alert people can sign up to, which would help family members and caregivers with people with disabilities or mental impairments to register their family members in their system so that when they get dispatched, they know they may need to bring additional services to the call. And so people can fill out this form to register that. And so that when the sheriffs get called out to your house, they're bringing the additional resources, maybe the mental health professional or some medical professional to assist. So wanted to bring that to your attention. And and then also the 988 number rolled out on July 16th in LA County. I don't have too much information about how that's going to affect the South Bay right now. The last I was told is, the county's stretched pretty thin. Their goal is to provide 24/7 support on that 988 number. But the only caveat is they can't guarantee a very good response time right now. And so that is why we're working very closely with beach cities to pilot additional vans for the 988 calls so that we can get response times down to less than 30 minutes. So I'll probably have a better update for you on that on the next meeting.
Okay, thank you, Ronson. Appreciate that.
Okay. After that, next is the Legislative Committee report. And I know Stacy's not here this evening. Where we are is on Monday, our chair sent another letter to the state legislature. What happened is, we were asking for $50 million. We didn't get the $50 million for the housing trust. We also asked for $5 million for projects that the COG would do like for electric charging, solar initiatives, a lot of other things that we have no funding for, but meet state goals. We heard nothing back from our legislators. We were told in March that there would be cleanup bills on the budget and we might be able to get funded through those. When we went back to the legislature legislators to say we want to get money in the cleanup bills, it was like, no, you missed our deadlines, too bad you can't. So I asked some people who have legislative I called it a legislative lobbyist that we've used in the past. He told me that he did some research, told me we had a 50-50 chance of getting any money in a cleanup bill, but that he would have to work so hard to do it that he was going to charge us an awful lot of money. So I ran that by some people on the legislative committee, and we decided, and they decided to make available to their lobbyists. So I did talk to a lobbyist from Gardena, and a lobbyist from Rancho Palos Verdes was also made available. They all said there might be a cleanup bill. If it is, it's a junior bill. It would be called a junior budget bill, and no one would get any more than $5 million at the most. And so in going through all of that, we rewrote the letter, sent it in on Monday to our legislators, and said, we want $3 million for the housing trust, because basically it's going to be hard to spend a lot of money right away anyway. So we want $3 million for the housing trust, and we want $1 million for all of these projects that we were talking about to meet state goals. We got a email this morning from Ben Allen's office, Senator Allen, and we are going to have a meeting on Monday. Nobody is saying we have a very good chance, but we're hoping to have a meeting. I think it's Tuesday, not Monday, to find out if there's any hope. And we'll let you know. I mean, we're in uncharted territory. The one thing that I think is, and we will probably rely on Rancho Palos Verdes and any other of you that have a lobbyist, is that everybody agrees we're not going to be able to do this from Los Angeles or from South Bay. We need somebody in Sacramento that knows when that bill gets put in, what's in it, how we can influence it, and how we get our legislators to advocate for us. So I think the eyes of a lobbyist are going to be very important. So that's that. Is there anyone, David or John, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, I'll add a little bit. So we did talk to our lobbyist this afternoon. Her name is Sharon Gonzalez, and she's with RPPG. Everything Jackie said was what she repeated. The only thing I would add is that regardless if we are able to get 5 million into some type of trailer, it wouldn't go into effect till January 1st. That's the only thing I would add.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. Thank you. Okay, and then and so the letter that we sent is in your packet, and that was the one that was added, the attachment was added. The next item is the added item on the agenda, and that's the letter to the County Board of Supervisors for mandatory mask mandate, commenting on a mandatory mask mandate. I know we have Lindsay Lastra and Alex Chang are here from the Department of Public Health, who I think would like to speak on this item, but if you want to present it, Mr. Chair.
Actually, if Drew is available right now, I'd like him to present it. If he's not available, then I could probably pinch hit for him. Drew, are you there?
Yeah, I just would quick overview. We felt fairly strongly in our city, unanimously, in fact, at the city council Tuesday night, we called a special meeting, that if in fact the mask mandates were required again in LA County, that we would not allocate city resources to enforce such mandates, and instead we would want to encourage people to make their own decisions. And we certainly wouldn't want to put the burden of enforcement back on the businesses, as we did about a year and a half ago, whenever that was. I believe a year ago, as recently as a year ago. So that was the extent of it. And then several of my colleagues on the El Segundo City Council asked that the South Bay COG consider a position on a similar matter. Now, again, today we heard that at least the county has deferred this decision for another week. And so that was the idea, is I asked Chair Cruikshank to put this before the board to consider a similar position on a mask mandate. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Drew. And so the letter before you really does, I think, take the essence of what BizFed had put together in regards to their letter to this County Board of Supervisors in regards to the mask mandates, not making them mandatory and not putting the onus on our businesses. So that's what has been presented before you. But I know that a couple of our county representatives want to also say a few things.
And I want to apologize. It's Alicia Chang, not, I think I said Alice. So
No problem. No
Hi,
problem.
Alicia.
Hello. So, for those of you who might not remember, I'm the regional health officer for service planning area 7 and 8. So, your cities are my areas. And we're really here, Lindsay and I are really here to answer any questions or concerns. I do think that the urgency of that letter has been put off given the decision today to not implement as planned for tomorrow, the mandatory mask mandate. So we'd like to hear what questions you have. I think just for context, the department's position has never been to ask or force the employers to enforce the mask mandate, meaning that this mandate is really a message to the communities that masking is a layer that can offer additional protection to our residents and necessary at times to curb transmission. It's also not intended to be punitive. And I believe that in the past 2 years, our county has only cited less than 1% of businesses out there for different types of violations, not necessarily related to masking. It may have been not offering testing to employees or not reporting outbreaks that were large on their locations and premises, et cetera. So again, I just want to reiterate that the mandates that we pose are really intended to protect the residents. I think you probably will have noticed, for those of you who listened to the press briefing today by Dr. Ferrer, that her position has always been to protect the most vulnerable individuals in the county. And she takes every single death very personally. She doesn't say this in press briefings, but in our internal leadership meetings, this is a really personal matter for her. And what she has seen over the past 2 years is that the most vulnerable communities, the cities that experience the highest poverty, are the ones that are getting hit the hardest. And so what her message is that we consider masking as a way to protect ourselves, but protect others, given the impact that COVID has had on people of color, poor residents, and these severely affected communities that will have long-lasting impacts on their well-being and health long after COVID is over, given that the deaths and the changes do affect the families that are there. So that is the position of the county. It is following the CDC guidance. We have metrics that we follow, and we ask that people mask. Right now it's by choice, and we monitor transmission. And as it continues to go up, there is a time when we feel that we need to curb transmission a little bit more to prevent, number one, our hospitals being impacted. That's not the case right now, but also the hospitalization and deaths and long COVID effects that we're seeing now, 2 years into the pandemic, 2.5 years into the pandemic. So that's the position that the department is taking. When public health departments do their job well and we curb disease, nobody really notices, right? You don't hear about outbreaks of, I don't know, salmonella or, Ebola or any other disease out there, because generally we're working in the background controlling disease. COVID has put everything front and center. And I think, we are dealing with the impact of people feeling that we're taking away their liberties. It's not about that. It's really about protecting your neighbors and those who are most at risk, tending to be people of color, low-wage workers, cities with the highest poverty indexes. So I'm happy to take questions. I understand that, everything about COVID has become so charged emotionally, and we really want to kind of step away from that and just look at, okay, what we know helps. And we're going with it. She also has acknowledged in various press briefings and as well as media releases that, yes, we are in a very different situation now than 2 years ago. 2 years ago, we literally had morgue trucks parked outside of hospitals. We're not there anymore, thank goodness. I think a lot of people don't necessarily know what a morgue truck looks like, but when you see 1 and then 2 and then 3, you know that we're really in a bad situation. So we're not there. We have treatment, we have vaccines. but it's not quite over yet. We are tracking mortality closely and hospitalizations. And then again, there's the whole aspect of long COVID and the effects on children and effects on cognitive scales. I'll pause there and take any questions and see if there's any, anything that I can help clarify.
Jim?
Thanks, Alicia. I think that you touched on a couple of the questions that I was going to ask, but I'm wondering if you can talk about hospitalization rates. I mean, my sense is that that the pandemic is something very different from what it was 2 years ago. The disease is different. The immunity that the populace has is different. The treatments that we have are different. And although I personally, anecdotally have witnessed, there's been a fair amount of COVID transmission this summer. I had COVID a month ago, despite being triple vaccinated. We do seem to be in a different phase of this, and I am somewhat skeptical of the necessity of a mask mandate. So if you can talk about, my question again was about hospitalization and death rates. And
Yes.
if you can.
Yes, I can definitely speak to that. I think we're in complete agreement with what the public perceives, that yes, we're in such a different place now than 2 years ago, and thank God for that, right? As I mentioned before, in 2020, we really were seeing the morgue trucks because the hospitals had run out of space in the hospital morgues. We're not there. Our mortality really has dropped, and that is due to both natural immunity, just from how many people got infected with COVID during Omicron, and as the months pass and more infectious variants come around, but also with all the vaccines. The vaccines, what we saw first was protection against infection, and then with new iterations of the variants, we are seeing not so much protection from infection. That protection went from 10 to 5 to now 2, twofold, but still that protection against hospitalizations and deaths. So you are right, our hospitalization rates are much lower now. And you probably have heard about, some various YouTube videos about this, and it is true. The metric that we're following is the CDC set metric. That is a threshold that is above what is normal, right? Like regular times, even during flu season, that hospitalization threshold is what we follow. That when we go above that, it is a flag that perhaps things are going the wrong way. And that is what we're trying to prevent from things. We want to act and not react when it's too late. And so when we see metrics and indicators heading in the wrong direction, that's when we correct. It's kind of like when you get a report card, a midterm report card for your child, and maybe grades are not as good. It's an indicator that an intervention is needed. And so that is how public health looks at it. We are tracking deaths, but deaths and hospitalizations are later metrics, right? They happen after some weeks after infection. And so we don't want to wait too late to act. And that is why, there's this constant look at the data to determine, do we need to do something now or not?
Can you put numbers to that, to any of that?
Yeah, so I think that the CDC had said 10, oh gosh, let me look at the numbers. I believe it's 10 per 100,000 people. I apologize. I have all the monkeypox data that I've been working on all day today. So I get, I'm having a COVID blank brain moment. But what the CDC had said was that we were at 11.7. So they receive all the national data for hospitalizations for COVID. But their data is a little bit delayed. And so when we looked at our data internally this week, we were ending at or as of yesterday, we were at 9.7. So it was under that 10 per 100,000 threshold. I think it's new hospitalizations per, what is a week? Don't quote me on that. It is on our website though. So we can definitely pull that up and show folks. Maybe I can even do it on my laptop and share my screen if that would help.
Actually, I mean, that provided a fair amount of context for me.
All right, George, you want to ask your question?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Chang, and thank you, Chair. I think the last time I actually called into Dr. Ferrer's Friday afternoon. briefing, I made a recommendation, and I'm gonna try it one more time. First of all, thank you for the report. And I think, I believe everyone here on this Zoom call also is concerned about every death. I think sometimes just because we do not agree with the mask mandate, it could be interpreted when we get briefings that we don't care about people dying. We all care about people dying. So I think just the way it comes out. The other thing is, if we're at a point, I too have had COVID, and maybe, I'm a different breed. I got over it quickly, and my whole family, and we've experienced it firsthand. At this point, endemic, what I suggested Dr. Ferrer last year was, the way we have been treating COVID. When someone get it, we send them home, and they feel bad and really bad, they go to ER. I think based on looking at data and statistics, that maybe we ought to do something a little different. We even have people here who caught COVID in Mexico, and they immediately put them on treatment. I think this is something where, our public health department probably is at a point we should suggest, and encourage the medical community. There was a time when they were kind of chastised if a doctor provided treatment. I think we're beyond that right now. I think we never know when someone catches COVID and how quickly they could turn real bad, and you got them to ER. I think that's the point where it's very difficult to treat when they're that bad. My suggestion is, you talk to your group and start thinking about, we're going to have variant to the infinite going in the future. I'm sure you already know that. So the continuous mask mandate, yes or no, whatever that number is. And that number is, with home testing kits, is probably not even correct anyway. So we are probably doing much better in the endemic than what we think, because there are probably a lot more cases that's not even being tested. So that was just my suggestion for a thought. We're all sensitive. I think it's almost like giving a cancer patient, you got the treatment here, X, Y, Z you can take. If you don't, these are the consequences. Yeah, we are concerned with everybody, whatever ethnicity, whatever economic status, just because we just want to give them the data and say, and it's not like we're insensitive to those who are in different economic or situation. Thank you.
Yeah, I can answer some of that, some of the questions I think that you're posing. With regards to treatment, we were the first jurisdiction, and perhaps even maybe one of the only jurisdictions, to have stood up a telehealth services to provide access to treatment. So clients who are needing, or patients who are needing treatment, can call, they get a quick assessment by physician, and we will ship and FedEx treatment to their home, so just to lower the barrier to access to treatment. And of course, we have handed out tons of doses to the medical community so that the primary care doctors can treat their own patients, so the hospitals can treat their patients. So we absolutely agree with you that treatment is one of our exits, right? One of our exits out of this, and are hoping that COVID will become more endemic, but not just endemic, but lower morbidity and lower mortality. So for example, with flu, every year we have flu, flu-related deaths, preventable deaths due to the vaccine. So every year we begin flu season planning in June, July to promote vaccination and send our nurses out to host flu vaccination clinics, et cetera, et cetera. Even with all that vaccine, the flu vaccine doesn't protect against infection that well, but it does keep people from dying and out of hospitals. So it's very similar to COVID. And yet COVID deaths are still surpassing flu deaths. And so I guess at some point, maybe the medical community and society will come to accept that, you know, every year we're just going to have X number of deaths due to COVID, just like we have X number of deaths from flu and X number of deaths from cancer. I think that we're just not quite ready to accept that yet. And we feel that we can do a little bit better with vaccination and a little bit better with, you know, education and a little bit better, you know, with getting the treatment really out there, that we can lower those deaths that are still occurring from COVID. One of the things we've also done is basically make it mandatory in skilled nursing homes that if you have a COVID positive patient, you're going to offer or you're going to have that treatment available, because we were finding that they were not being offered treatment. And that is something that can be used and has been demonstrated to prevent deaths. The other things that we're working on, for example, is working on our more vulnerable populations who don't have that access to treatment and don't have the wherewithal necessarily to call and access our telehealth services. So I'm speaking specifically of our people experiencing homelessness. There are a lot of barriers to getting them treatment, right? Even the shipping of the meds, they have to be in a certain location at a certain time. We've had situations where we have residents who don't have phones and they're using the site facility phone, right? So all those barriers, I really am hoping that as a public health department and as a community of medical providers out there, we can eliminate or really lower to, again, make sure that as COVID becomes more endemic and everybody's catching it, that we're not leaving pockets behind of people who have not been as well protected and will be continue to be impacted negatively, right? So like the gaps and the disparities will continue to grow. So that's, I think, one of the reasons why the public health department has been entertaining the idea of the mask mandate, is again, to just kind of make sure that these last communities of, you know, of vulnerable individuals have access, have systems in place. A lot of the social, you know, determinants of health have been addressed so they can access treatment, can continue to access vaccinations if they change their mind. And we understand that, yes, in some ways, the cat's out of the bag. It's just everybody's catching it. It's true, lots of rapid tests are not being reported. And so that's why we're tracking hospitalizations and deaths, because those are the most severe outcomes. And those are the ones that are mandatorily reported by the hospitals. But we agree with you, we're in a very different place. We're just not quite done yet. At least we're not ready to just say, okay, that's it, we're gonna wash our hands and you know, whoever catches it ends up in the hospital and ends up with long COVID or dies, you know, there's nothing else we can do, because we feel like there's still something we can do to protect the residents.
Okay, and Dr. Chang, thank you. I think the point that George was making was that we all care about all the things you just said, but when you say that you don't intend the mask mandate to be enforced by businesses, at the end of the day, it is enforced by businesses. And it's, for us, I think many of us feel that it's heavy-handed at this point, and that a universal mask mandate is something that we don't want. So we'd like you to do something maybe a little more specific to some of the things you mentioned in terms of making sure that people that are lower incomes and people of color have access to all those things. But we don't necessarily combine that with a mask mandate, which is, you know, something that's a universal thing that we're being asked to do. And in fact, I think 2 of the supervisors are against universal mandates as well. So Jackie, do we want to have one more speaker from the county, or you're muted?
I don't know if the county has, Lindsay, did you want to say anything, or I don't think that.
No, definitely not. Dr. Chang.
She's just here with me, you know, my team. John, I hear what you're saying, and I do agree with what you're saying, is that perhaps in order to protect the most vulnerable, we're going too broad and affecting too many people, right? And to maybe target the efforts more. And that's definitely feedback that we've heard, and that Dr. Ferrer and Dr. Davis are considering as we move forward. We are trying to assess the situation, you know, and trying to make the best choices with it in a very difficult time. And the ultimate goal is to protect people. As you all know, we all want the same thing. We all want to make sure that our residents are safe, and at the same time not overdo it. And so, you know, when I took this job, I explained to Drs. Ferrer and Davis, that yes, with public health departments, people are always angry with us because either they think we're doing too much or they think we're doing too little. So it is really hard to please everyone. And yes, we do hear what you're saying, is that maybe we can try to be re-strategize. And we're already reaching out to the vulnerable communities. We have our mobile vaccine teams going to those sites, and the case interviews are really targeted to the low-income communities or high morbidity communities. It's just that sometimes when the numbers are going in the opposite direction of where you want them to see, it's hard not to, intervene.
Sure. Okay, well, Drew has recommended a letter and it's been drafted. Is there a motion to send that letter?
Move to approve and send the letter.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded by Rodney. Do we want to do a roll call vote? Oh, Hildy, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I haven't seen the letter. I've been looking for it and I haven't seen it. Where can we find that letter?
It's on page of the packet 71.
Thank you.
Okay. Did you have another question or should I go to Barry? I'll go to Barry. Barry?
Yeah, I just don't see any point to sending a letter at this point. I mean, the die is already cast, and I think it just politicizes it more, and we need to politicize it less. We have too many people running around saying it's all fake anyway. I know that's not what we're saying, but they'll take it as that. Anyway. So I would just assume that we didn't do this. They've already backed down, and they're following the best science. So let's just stick with that.
Okay, thanks, Barry. Olivia?
Well, I agree in principle with what you're saying, but I do not think they have backed down. I think they have pulled back, and I think that they need to know how the community feels, because this will come back again. If the cases go back up, there will be another push for a mandate, and I think they need to know that the community feels that this is a burden on our businesses, and that it makes our businesses less competitive with businesses in other communities, other counties, and that regardless of whether they say they're not going to push the businesses to enforce it, the fact that you say it's a mandate, many businesses will feel they have to enforce it, and cities also will feel that they have to enforce it. So I think that we need to make our position clear. We are an advocacy organization after all, and I think we have to stand up for the residents and the businesses. So I would say we should send it regardless of what the present position of the county is, because that could change next week. So I think we should send the letter.
Thank you, Olivia. Hildy, did you have another question or comment?
I do, thank you. First, I'm sorry, John, did you say it was on page 71? I don't see it.
I think David put it in the chat.
I put in the chat. I don't know if you're looking at maybe the first a packet that went out.
Okay, that's very likely. I thank you for that. I will look at the letter. I do have to say that I'm inclined, even if I haven't seen the letter, to not vote on this at this time. Maybe it's more appropriate for me to abstain, but we're talking a lot about supporting our businesses, but I don't feel like what we've had a discussion about is supporting the employees in those businesses. And typically the employees who are in businesses that come from lower income communities don't have the option to work remotely. They're working at minimum wage jobs. They're working all day in stores and businesses and retail, and they don't have the option that many of us have to either frequent those businesses or not wear a mask. And they're trying to protect themselves. So it's not necessarily supporting a business if employees want to be protected themselves and not get COVID, and then not have the spiraling effect of not being able to work if they get COVID, because people are coming into their businesses unmasked and spreading an illness that they couldn't protect themselves against. So I think there's more to this conversation than just that it supports our businesses if we say we don't want a mask mandate. I don't think it necessarily does. And I think we need to look more broadly at how we're supporting our community. So I'll go ahead and look at the letter, but I'm inclined to at least abstain at this time until I understand better why we would vote on a letter that it doesn't seem applicable at this time from the Board of Supervisors' actions, for sure. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Hildy. Okay, it doesn't look like there's any more questions or comments, so let's go ahead and do a roll call vote.
Okay. Carson,
No.
El Segundo, yes.
Did he vote?
Was that a
Yes.
yes, Drew?
You got a Y in there.
Yes.
Thank you. Gardena,
Yes.
Hawthorne,
Yes,
Hermosa Beach, not present. Inglewood, not present. Lawndale, not present. Lomita,
No.
Los Angeles, not present. Manhattan Beach,
No,
Palos Verdes Estates,
Abstain.
Rancho Palos Verdes,
Yes.
Redondo Beach, not present. Rolling Hills,
Yes.
Rolling Hills Estates,
Abstain.
Torrance,
Yes.
LA County District 2 is not present, and LA County District 4.
Abstain, obviously.
Okay. So we've got 1, 2, 3 no's.
It's 6-3 and 1. 6-3 and 3.
Got it. So the motion passes.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Sometimes they are a little more controversial issues, but thank you for talking through that. That was a good way to do that. Thank you, everyone. Next item, please.
Next item is Kim talking about environmental services. Any updates on that?
Yes, we heard from our Civic Spark Fellows earlier, but I wanted to give you an update on Y-Green. And they are actually going to be suspending their residential PACE program starting in August 15. Many of our cities have that program in their cities. A few don't. Torrance, Hawthorne, Hermosa Beach, Lawndale, Rolling Hills, and Rancho Palos Verdes do not have this program, but all of the rest of the cities do have this program in their city. Y-Green said that any project that is underway, this is the PACE financing for energy efficiency. Any project that's in process right now will continue. Any program that is in sort of like the queue to get approved will continue, but no new projects will start after August 15th. So that was one thing I wanted to let you know. Also, we have been working with several cities on looking at opportunities to install electric vehicle charging. We actually had a great meeting with the city of Carson today. They were working with Edison's Charge Ready program, and Edison was not willing to put charging stations in their city hall complex area, which seems like they belong there. But luckily through the SoCal REN, they're going to evaluate it and potentially be able to fund those chargers. So we are doing that with several cities. This is a special funding that is available for public agencies that have facilities that are a quarter mile of multifamily dwellings in disadvantaged communities. It's a little bit long in the qualification. And we're in the middle of doing our Civic Spark New Fellow recruitment. And so that's taking place right now. That's all I have right now.
Thank you, Kim.
Okay, next is, we're working very hard on our fiber grant. As you know, there's, if you might know, there's federal and state money. Somebody is squeaking, and I don't think that's me. I don't know if everybody can mute. But anyway, we're working on a federal and state grant, which we don't know if we'll be competitive for, because unfortunately, in a way, we have fiber and there's going to be all kinds of applications coming in. We're trying to make sure that it is that we cover our disadvantaged communities, which is the thrust of this grant, but we're hoping to do a market analysis of the whole South Bay, try and figure out where the fiber is, what we're paying, if there's competition, you know, if people are underserved. The fact that there is fiber in some places and the fact that it's such terrible service, we want to highlight that as well. So what we've done is we've asked your cities for letters of support. There is no deadline on this grant. It goes to the Public Utilities Commission, but it is first come, first served. So we've set ourselves a deadline of August 19th. And we've sent your cities asking them for letters of support by, I think, August 14th or something like that. And I'm pleased to say, if you don't hear your city's name, please follow up. We've gotten letters from Gardena, Hermosa Beach, Inglewood, Lomita, Rolling Hills Estates, and Torrance. We are on the Carson agenda for August 2nd and hope to get the letter after that. And what we really critically need is Hawthorne and Lawndale. Lawndale's not here tonight, but we're hoping that we can get a letter from every city to show the strong support. And if you can send your letters in to me and to Aaron Baum, we are collecting them and we're working on that. There's reports there's committee meetings every week to talk about how we fashion that grant. So that's, I don't know if anybody has any questions on that.
I'm sorry, Jackie, when was the deadline you said you needed the letter by?
I think I asked for it by August 14th. The request for the letter of support went to city managers and to your IT, the people we have on our list for your IT. So that's.
Can you send me a copy of that letter? Because I don't think I have it, and I want to make sure that I push it so that everyone sees it who needs to see it.
Okay. And that's a letter for fiber. Okay. And then the next thing is another letter. What we're doing now is we're not a letter, another request. On the local travel network, I think I've mentioned to you, we've hired Fair and Peers who are working with us on branding the local travel network and wayfinding signage. And even though we're working with some early action cities, early implementation cities, I should say, everybody will be involved in what those signs look like eventually because we're creating a network for the South Bay. So we're asking people to participate, cities, to send us a representative to participate in a charrette, which is going to be on August 18th with Fair and Peers to talk about the logos and the branding. And so far, we have commitments to come to that meeting from staff in El Segundo, Hermosa Beach, Inglewood, Lomita, Manhattan Beach, Rancho Palos Verdes, Redondo Beach, and LA County District 2, I think. We're waiting on the cities that I haven't heard. We might have a representative from Rolling Hills and Rolling Hills Estates, but that's pending. So if you haven't heard your city's name, please ask them to sign up for that charrette so that we can have, what's going to happen is there's actually going to be 2 meetings where we're going to take input at this first meeting, talk about branding ideas, what should be in a good brand, what should be on a sign, how much information, how do we create this? Second meeting, there'll be another meeting after the consultant takes in all of the input from the first meeting. And then that's it. We only are asking for 2 meetings, people's time for 2 meetings. And then we're going to take hopefully 3 suggestions through our committees and to come to the board for selection of the final signage. So, so that's where we are with the local travel network. And I just have to say that every time we make a presentation, it's really favorably received. We did have a little dust up on Nextdoor after, I didn't mention. Drew Boyles, our chief pilot, took Assemblyman Marisucci along with John Cruikshank on a ride in El Segundo because Assemblyman Marisucci actually asked if he could ride in a neighborhood electric vehicle. And he not only rode it, he drove it. And so we were really delighted by that. And he was so delighted, he put a lot up on his Facebook page. And we ended up getting a lot of feedback, a lot of it good, but some of it not good, and really misunderstanding what the local traffic network is all about. And so we're, public education is obviously part of this. The more we get out there, the more questions we're going to be answering. And if you have places where we can go and answer those questions, we'd be more than happy to.
Jack, you didn't mention how I went off script and went all the way down to the beach, even though I wasn't supposed to, and almost lost the assembly member into a major ditch in the El Segundo beach parking lot.
I thought maybe
That was a
you would,
close call.
I didn't want to say that for you.
That was close. I'm glad that the
It was a really fun day and he really had a good time. And I should say, we're working on something for the fall or he had another idea. And his idea, the assemblyman, was that we should put a neighborhood electric vehicle outside the Capitol building in Sacramento and tell legislators it's out there and they can drive it. Well, that's not so easy for us to do from the South Bay. So I found contacts, and he also said he'd put us in contact with the city of Sacramento. And we've decided we're not going to try to make ourselves crazy and do anything now. But when the new legislative session starts in January, we are hoping to reintroduce our bill for rebates for the neighborhood electric vehicles. And with that reintroduction, we would like to have that day where we can say to legislators, there's a vehicle here, come drive it. So we're going to work on that for probably January, February timeframe.
Very good. Thank you, Jackie. Next item.
Next item is senior services, and Britt or Ronson, do you want to say anything?
Well, I just mentioned that our senior working group met this past Tuesday, had a really great turnout, and thank you to those council people who did attend. We had several really interesting presentations, one especially by the Independence at Home program for SCAN, S-C-A-N. A program for non-members, free programs for seniors, low income, supportive of people staying in their homes as they age. And it was really very helpful. And then we also had an update from the West Side Pacific Village, which also helps seniors stay in their home as they age. It's a membership organization, but over COVID, the last year or so, they waived their membership fees and really provided some wonderful hands-on services. So, and I think next month, or actually we meet every other month, September 27, I think Cedric is going to be one of our speakers on programs in Carson. So we're looking forward to that. And let's see, Ronson, do you have any other additions to that?
No, I just want to say, as we still continue to see at the COG seniors being impacted by high inflation and the downturn in our economy. We're still getting phone calls, once a week about a senior, not being able to, pay rent or having some difficulties. I got 2 calls this week. So I was actually able to use some of the resources in the working group meeting for these seniors. So it's already made an impact.
Thank you,
Great.
Ronson. Okay, next item.
The SPA 8 working group and the SPA 8 report. Ronson, were you going to do that? What's happening is the working group has not met. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Lindsay's here, and correct me if I'm wrong. Lindsay and I decided that due to staffing and your time and our time and all of the information, she's been giving incredibly informative reports, but we're not going to do it every month. We're going to do it quarterly. And then like tonight, she'll be here, or she'll be sending us information starting, I think, in August or September, with information that that you can obviously pass on to your city and to your colleagues. But we're not going to have, as you noticed tonight, there was no SPA 8 working group. And we definitely do not want to lose the contact we have with Lindsay and Alicia, but we would like to move it to like a quarterly report on the board agenda. Lindsay, did I get anything wrong there? Remind me.
Slightly. So basically the quarterly, sorry, I'm trying to come off my camera, but I'll just keep going. Oh, there I am. The quarterly part will basically be my presentation to you all. So that way we can still have a presentation from the department. But monthly, I will submit a report that you will have on your agenda. And that way you can just review. And if you have questions, I'll be on, or somebody from the department will be on to answer questions. But hopefully that helps with some of the timing.
Super. Great, Lindsay.
And the SPA 8 working group, one of the things that Ronson's going to be working on is we discussed having field trips. going to Harbor UCLA and seeing some of the rooms that, well, the 5150 kind of rooms, the hold, I guess. What, just, Ronson, are you there? You might want to explain some of the, and ask, we're going to be asking beach cities to help us arrange some of these, but Ronson?
Yeah, so as we talked about last time, or maybe it was in the steering committee, I can't remember, but Council Member Cruikshank, or our chair, had a great suggestion about doing field trips and to see some of these facilities so we can get a level set in our minds what we're really talking about in terms of the need. We all know there's a drastic need for mental health services, increased number of beds, facilities, social workers, all that good stuff. What does that really mean? How does that look like? And so I think these field trips will shed a lot of light into that.
That's terrific.
Mr. Chair, I have nothing else.
Okay, that's it for the night?
Well, unless there's events and announcements.
Does anyone have any events or announcements? Yes, George.
This is probably my last meeting with you guys as a board member, and it's been a pleasure. There's another member who's actually joined us today. Just want to let you know that we will be appointing someone at our next council meeting. So, and I will be an alternate. So, and along with another alternate, I like the way El Segundo does it. They have a lot of alternates just in case the director isn't there. So, just want to say thank you and keep up the good work, and I appreciate all that you do.
Thank you.
George, thank you for all you do, and congratulations on becoming mayor of Torrance. And I do see your fellow council member right now, Aurelio Matucci. Aurelio, do you want to say a quick hello or just a wave?
Yeah, no, I thank you guys for welcoming here, but I was on my cell phone listening in and it went dead. So I tried to scramble and came home and did it on this computer. So anyways, interesting information. I really appreciate it. I look forward to working with all of you.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Aurelio. Welcome aboard. Okay, Barry.
So I'm going to steal one from Cedric because it's actually in his city, but it's a regional activity, which is Relay for Life is coming up in Carson on August 13th. And so this is of particular interest to me right now because my barbershop chorus, we just lost 2 guys to cancer in the last 2 months. And I know all of us have lost friends and family. And in some cases, I know some of you have dealt with it personally. So anyway, Relay for Life is a great program. The purpose is to raise money to fight cancer. So just look it up, Relay for Life Carson, and you don't even have to show up. They've cut it down to just 4 hours instead of being the 24-hour thing it used to be. So I have 2 teams. We have Rotary and the Carson Chamber that I'm working with both of those. But we invite people from across the region to participate in that. So. And Cedric may want to add something.
He's going to. Cedric?
Thank you, Barry, for that, for the plug for the American Cancer Society Relay for Life. Keeping in that same vein, I'm actually putting on my 2nd annual Prostate Cancer Awareness 5K walk at Cal State University Dominguez Hills. Giving you enough time. It's not until September the 17th, but it's a process that I've been working with for a while because I've had my father, not my father, but my brother-in-law is stage 4 prostate cancer. I just lost a good friend to prostate cancer last night. And just understanding that men need to really understand to get tested, to get checked. So just spread the word. My biggest concern is I always tell the women, tell your significant others they need to get tested. And I think when the women tell the men to do it, it seems to hit home easier than for a man to tell a man. But I just want to make sure you guys understand that this is going to be on September the 17th at Cal State Dominguez Hills on the campus. They're co-sponsoring it. And 2 of my biggest supporters for this is Providence, Little Company Mary, and City of Hope have come on as title sponsors for this year's walk. So come out 5K. If I can walk it, anybody can walk it. It's only 3 miles. So if you guys can come on out, please join me on September 17th.
Great. Thank you so much, Cedric. Okay, with that, I think we're adjourned for the evening. I want to have a great rest of have a great August. Good night.
Good night.
Bye, everybody.
All right.
Good night.